We would like to thank them for gracing us with their presence. 首先为您介绍莅临现场的嘉宾，我们请长明道的贵宾起身跟我们挥手致意。我们首先欢迎到的是行政院陈建仁院长 ，Premier of Taiwan， 欢迎院长，欢迎。接下来我们要欢迎到的是国发会龚明鑫主委，欢迎主委 ，Minister of the National Development Council Taiwan，a warm welcome。接下来欢迎的是我们台北市电脑工会彭双浪理事长，欢迎理事长。Chairman of Taipei Computer Association, welcome. 台北市电脑工会童子贤荣誉理事长 ，Honorary Chairman of the Taipei Computer Association. 行政院发言人林子伦 ，Spokesperson of Executive Yuan Taiwan. 欢迎中央研究院廖俊智院长，欢迎院长 ，President Liao of Academia Sinica. 我们感谢以上贵宾的莅临指导。And to kickstart, we would like to invite Minister Kong Min-shin of the National Development Council to give us a welcome speech. 我们首先来邀请的是国家发展委员会龚明鑫主委致欢迎词，欢迎主委 ，Please help me welcome Minister Kong to the stage.
我们在座有行政院陈院长，然后还有廖俊智廖院长，还有子伦发言人，还有童理事长，然后左边我们彭双浪同样是我们共同的主办方，还有我们师副执委，还有来自国际的友人、国际贵宾，大家午安，大家好。那真的非常高兴，我要代表主办方来欢迎各位贵宾，来参加我们有关于近邻城市这个国际峰会。那我要感谢专程远道而来总共有46个国家跟地区，112个城市的海外贵宾的共襄盛举。那透过这个城市国际城市的经验的交流，来共同探讨如何实践全球近邻碳排这样的重要的议题。那我们都知道，在去年12月的时候，这个 COP 就是28的时候的会议呢，首次举办了地方气候行动高峰会，就是 COP28 Local Climate and Action Summit。里面呢特别强调了城市它是对抗整个气候变迁的第一个防线，也凸显了这个整个地方跟城市在加速气候变迁行动里面呢，可以发挥出关键性的作用。也强调了迫切需要在实现永续发展目标的背景之下，采取更包容的方式来对抗这个气候变迁。那么可见的近邻城市在城市治理上的落实是越来越重要。那今天我们的近邻城市的国际峰会的论坛呢，也将延续这个 COP 这个28的讨论的热度进一步来就各个城市落实能源转型也好，或公正转型也好，或生活转型也好，来进行充分的讨论。那很感谢，除了我们台湾方面有很多的专家跟学者参与之外呢，也有来自于包括美国、德国、西班牙、纽西兰，还有阿拉伯联合大公国、巴西、泰国、菲律宾等等的国家，负责有关于近邻转型的部会也好，或城市的首长们，大家可以热情的分享推动近邻城市方面的相关的经验跟心得。那么我们也从这里面看到了，事实上近邻的这个议题也在全球各地各个城市来发酵，也说明了台湾朝向我们近邻转型的这个道路上也跟全球来做了接轨，也能够为全世界的近邻转型贡献心力。那我们都知道说，近邻转型呢是一个很大的一个转型跟转变，很可能直接或间接导致全世界约有大概1.87亿的工作机会， 的流失，但是呢，也有可能创造2.2亿个工作机会的产生哦。所以这个中间的转型过程当中，如果要让它顺利的话，恐怕我们要照顾每一个人可能的转型跟机会哦。所以为什么现在大家共同的讨论公正转型会那么重要？强调我们尽量不遗落任何人，这样的转型才会成功。另外啊，城市基本上也作为人类的社会跟经济活动最核心的载体。那现在大概估计上来讲的话，全世界大概有75%的能源消耗是发生在城市里面，大概60%到70%的温室气体排放，还有90%以上的大气污染物都来自于城市人类的活动。所以因此我们特别强调了说，能源转型，城市的能源转型啊，它是对应于全球气候变迁最重要的核心。那也就是我们为什么要讨论这个主要的议题、主要的目的。另外，我们也知道，根据国际的能源总署这个 IEA， 他提到，在2050年的净零，在全球能源不能的路径图里面呢，他也特别提到，事实上，假设我们可以透过日常的生活行为上的改变所引领相关的部门可以创造40%到80%不等的减碳的贡献，所以它也是生活上的转型，也是影响气候变迁重要的策略。那所以就是说，城市作为民众食衣住行等生活形态的场域对于引领民众进行近邻生活形态的改变也扮演非常关键重要的角色。那我们很期待透过今天的论坛的活动的举办我们可以链接国内外城市的力量，来分享近邻转型的经验跟方法，让台湾也可以跟全世界的各国共同携手，加快近邻工作的脚步，为全世界迈向近邻的愿景的目标一起努力。最后，我要再次的感谢各位贵宾今天的莅临，尤其是院长的莅临，因为院长今天早上有立法院的总咨询，下午也要立法院总咨询，特别抽空，真的是抽空中午的时间来莅临我们，给我们指导，真的非常感谢。那我们常常有一句话就是说，千里之行，始于足下。只要我们一开始踏出第一步以后，我们就不怕路遥远，我们只要努力，一定可以达到目标。让我们一起对全世界的近邻做出努力贡献。谢谢各位。
谢谢主委，那请主委先行回座。那接下来我们要邀请到的是我们行政院的陈建仁院长，为我们说几句话。Let us welcome 陈建仁 Premier of Taiwan to the stage as he delivers his welcoming remarks.
"我们大家敬爱的国发会龚主委，我们中央研究院廖院长，我们台北市电脑工会的童荣誉理事长，还有我们行政院的林子龙发言人，我们台北市电脑工会的彭理事长，还有各国与会的贵宾，女士先生，各位媒体朋友，大家午安，大家好。
好。
今天很高兴来参加2024智慧城市暨近邻城市的这个展出。那这一个高峰会议呢，我相信相当的重要，很高兴能够跟大家齐聚一堂，来分享智慧城市跟近邻城市的成果。今天有超过46个国家、112个城市的贵宾来共襄盛举，共同为全球城市落实2050近邻的目标而努力。对于各位积极参加气候的行动，本人致上最高的敬意，欢迎你们。根据2023全球气候报告指出，去年是自1850年全球纪录以来最温暖的年份，比百年1901到2000年均温还要高出1.18度，是人类 历史记录上最热的一年。现在全球气温升高已经十分接近巴黎协定所设定目标 1.5 度的门槛，代表全世界势必要尽速来采取更积极的减碳和调适的策略，才能守护地球永续的未来。近年来，各国都积极参与近邻的倡议，并且付出实际的行动，包括了欧盟碳边境调整机制 CBAM， 还有在去年10月开始试行，在美国清洁竞争法案 CCA 最快在今年会上路。亚洲各国相继成立碳权交易所，全球企业也纷纷加入了再生能源倡议组织 RE100。去年11月举办的第28届联合国气候变迁大会 COP28 也首次进行全球盘点 GSD， 实地来检核各国气候行动的成绩，期盼所有的国家、城市都必须要加快、加深，而且加大力道来落实近邻的行动。台湾在蔡英文总统领导下，已经在2021年的4月22日，世界地球日来宣示2050近邻转型是全世界的目标，也是台湾的目标。去年2月，台湾公布了气候变迁因应法，是全球少数将2050近邻排放目标入法的国家。同时，我国也积极强化能源的韧性，以接轨 COP28 所设定的2030全球再生能源增加到目前的3倍，能源的效率翻倍的国际目标。我要跟大家报告，截至去年底，我国整体再生能源累计装置容量已经达到17.9 GW， 相较于2016年成长了8倍。再生能源发电量已经达到267亿度，也比2016年大幅倍增。现在绿电的占比约10%，在今年2月11日，风电跟光电的渗透率更达到52.37%， 创下新高。换句话说，每2度电就有1度电是绿电。这显示我们的政府和民间全力推动下，再生能源已经逐渐展现出持续成长的成果。近邻排放是城市治理的重要课题，城市扮演着对气候变迁的前线角色，同时也是实现近邻排放的重要实践场所。国际能源总署 IEA 指出，透过数位化共享模式营运、城市绿色基础建设的设计，以及绿色运输推广等等方式，都可以有效来减少高达60%的城市碳足迹。台湾在现有的基础下，正在积极推动第2次的能源转型，鼓励深度节能发展，同时推动绿色和数位的产业双轴转型，来形塑近邻永续绿生活。政府也会成为近邻转型最强有力的后盾，并确保在落实公进转型的道路上不遗落任何的人。我要再一次欢迎所有贵宾来到台湾，我们将与各国各城市共同携手合作，加快近邻工作的脚步，为全世界迈向近邻的愿景目标一起来努力。一起来努力。我在这里谨祝今天的活动能够顺利圆满成功，当然也祝福大家身心灵健康、平安喜乐、万事如意、家庭美满。谢谢，
谢谢。我们现在请院长在台上先行留步，跟我们一起来参加今天的合影留念活动。我们现在有请以下贵宾一同上台参与合影留念。We now invite the following guests of honor to go on stage to join the group photo shooting. 我们热烈掌声欢迎国发会龚明鑫主委，再次请主委上台，欢迎。台北市电脑工会彭双浪理事长，也请理事长上台。台北市电脑工会童子贤荣誉理事长，欢迎理事长。行政院发言人林子伦发言人。中央研究院 廖俊志院长，国发会施克和副主委，也请副主委一同上台。We would also like to welcome Amani Kumar, Deputy Secretary General of ICLEI and Executive Director of ICLEI South Asia. Please also welcome Lyndon Morris, Leader and Senior Partner of Innovation Labs. Please also help me welcome Luis Neves, CEO of Global Enabling Sustainability Initiative. We'd also like to welcome Fashia David Dube, Principal Secretary, Ministry of Information and Communication Technology, Eswatini. Please also welcome Ing-wen Chucho, Ministry of Human Resource, Culture, Tourism and Development, Palau. And lastly, Chula Sukmanov, Secretary General of Eastern Economic Corridor, Thailand. Ladies and gentlemen, let us put our hands together and give them a very warm welcome as they take the stage for today's group photo shooting. 那我们请各位贵宾望向前方 Smile, please direct your attention to our photographers positioned right in front of you. 那我们现在也请台上的贵宾右手比赞，让媒体再捕捉几个画面。Now please kindly show your enthusiasm by giving us a thumbs up for our photographers to take a few more photos to capture this moment. Smile! Say cheese! 我们再来一张。好，李晨，谢谢。感谢台上贵宾，请台上贵宾回座。我们现在先请媒体朋友们移动到近邻政策馆，稍后我们的陈院长跟贵宾将会移动到近邻政策馆参观。我们现在可以先请媒体朋友们先行移动到近邻政策馆。And with that, we conclude the group photo shooting. Esteemed guests, please return to your seats. 那我们现在也请我们工作人员引导现场贵宾。那么我们现在的行政院陈院长等贵宾将要移步到近邻政策馆来参观。让我们是不是以再次热烈的掌声来感谢院长今天专程前来？院长还有所有贵宾，谢谢。我们今天也有许多的论坛的讲者、主持人。专家学者、业界代表今天跟我们一同出席，共襄盛举。因为碍于议程的时间，没有办法一一的介绍，在此仅代表主办单位向在座的所有贵宾致上我们最诚挚的欢迎。接下来我们要进行的是我们今天的主题专题演讲。And now, moving on to the next item on the agenda.It is my distinct honor to introduce our first keynote speaker, Dr. James Liao, President of Academia Sinica. Dr. Liao will give a speech on science and technology approaches to achieving net zero emission in Taiwan. So, ladies and gentlemen, let us give a very warm welcome to Dr. Liao.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First, I'd like to welcome all our international friends and all those come from afar. I hope you have a chance to enjoy the beautiful city of Taipei as well as the rest of Taiwan during your visit to Taiwan. So today I'm going to use the next 15 minutes to talk a little bit about our view of how to achieve net zero emission, particularly in Taiwan. And this is a result of our study for more than 2 years. And we issue a report for policy recommendation focusing on science and technology solutions to achieve this net zero emission in Taiwan. So our focus is the following. First, we look at the source of greenhouse gases. Okay, this is the pie chart of all the emission sectors in Taiwan. This is the data from 2019 when we produced more than 287 million tons of CO2 equivalent. okay, about 300 million tons. Where do this CO2 come from? So we look at this pie chart. All the green sectors are related to energy usage. So immediately we know that when we use energy, inevitably it produces CO2. Regardless of a dark green or light green, you have electricity generation, you have a steam cogeneration, manufacturing, construction, or even transportation. All these are related to energy usage. Among all these energy usage sectors, the biggest one is electricity generation, which accounts for about 50% of our CO2 emission. So immediately that tells us if you want to achieve net zero carbon emission, you have to look at the big items, although everything else is important. As we all know that the societal transition or the economic transition are very important. But at least we have to take care of the technology. We need to have a way to generate clean energy. So our conclusion at this point is that electricity generation is the largest source of emission in Taiwan and probably in many places in the world. And 30 to 40% of power generation comes from natural gas in Taiwan. And the percentage is actually increasing because we want to eliminate the usage of coal. So currently, the way we utilize natural gas is direct combustion, where we generate power electricity, at the same time we generate CO2. Alternatively, people will suggest that why don't we get rid of the carbon first by using the steam methane reforming and create something called the gray hydrogen. Unfortunately, this process also produces CO2. So regardless of how you use it, you will produce CO2 and you will need to use CCUS, carbon capture storage technology, to capture the CO2 generated and then find somewhere to store the CO2. And even though CO2 capture is established technology, but CO2 storage is difficult, particularly in Taiwan, because it would be challenging to find a proper site to store this CO2 properly for a long time. So, in this backdrop, we propose that we'll focus on the following 5 types of technologies that will help Taiwan to lead to a net zero emission economy. The first technology is what we call the methane pyrolysis to power. The second technology is geothermal energy. The third one is ocean current energy. The fourth one is high efficiency solar. And then the last one is dependent on bioenergy and biocarbon storage to take care of the rest of the carbon emission. So what is the methane pyrolysis? As some of you know that natural gas composed of primary methane, which has a component of carbon and a component of hydrogen. So typically, if we burn methane, burn natural gas, we will produce carbon dioxide because of the carbon component. Why don't we get rid of the carbon before we burn it? And this type of technology has been developed in the past decade or so, but we take the methane and you split it up, get the hydrogen out and carbon. And the carbon will exist in a solid form. So instead of gaseous form that goes to the atmosphere, you have the solid carbon, which is a good industrial raw material as well. And it's much easier to store. So once you have this, then you can utilize the carbon, utilize the hydrogen to generate power, generate electricity, and you will not produce CO2. So compare the current method, the natural gas to power, even though you will not require any energy input to burn the natural gas, but you will generate a lot of CO2. generate about 357 grams per kilowatt hour of electricity. So you will need to use CCUS, which is a major cost and a major problem in many countries, including Taiwan. Alternatively, if we use methane pyrolysis to generate power, we would need to invest energy, but not very much energy, 76 kilojoule. And you generate less electricity, but the advantage is that you do not generate CO2. Okay, so that is a major advantage. Comparing to alternative way to generate hydrogen, that is using electricity to hydrolyze, to electrolyze water. Water electrolysis requires a lot more energy, and methane pyrolysis requires only 1/7 of its energy. So in terms of energy, it's much more efficient. And there's no need for hydrogen storage and transportation. You generate the hydrogen right before you feed into the gas power generator. And this scheme can generate, if you invest in 1 kilowatt hour of clean energy, it can generate 3 kilowatt hour of clean energy. So you have a net gain of clean electricity of 2 kilowatt hour. Okay? So this is a positive scheme. Alternatively, if you use water electrolysis to generate power, you take 1 kilowatt hour to split water and get the hydrogen. At the end, you only regenerate 0.5 kilowatt hour at best. So you have a net loss of clean electricity. Whereas if you use methane pyrolysis, you have a net gain of clean electricity. So we have developed this type of technology using two processes. One is a catalyst-driven methane pyrolysis. The other one is plasma-driven pyrolysis. And we have worked with the Thai Power Company to demonstrate this technology in a small commercial unit, 65 kilowatt unit. It's relatively small, but it's successfully demonstrated its process. The next technology we propose is geothermal. As you know that there's something called Pacific Ring of Fire. So around the Pacific Ring, many places has a lot of geothermal energy, including our neighbors, Japan and Philippines. Unfortunately, in Taiwan, we have not explored this geothermal energy very much. Up until now, we have only 4 megawatt. And potential to develop geothermal is at least 100 times, if not 1,000 times or more. And we have started exploring geothermal energy, particularly the next generation geothermal energy, meaning is the deep well geothermal energy, is more than 3 kilometers deep. And we have spotted a few places that we have plenty of geothermal energy. One is in Yilan, in the eastern part of Taiwan. The other one is close to Taipei City, is in the mountain area. So those are the key areas. And we have developed technologies to explore this geothermal power. And this is the example of our technology output. We can identify the underground structure and heat source inside the domain. The next technology that we propose is the ocean current technology. This is called Kuroshio current. If you look at the Pacific Ocean, its circulation comes from the California, the Mexican side, and go to Taiwan. I cut across the Philippines, and then go north to Taiwan, to Taipei, to Japan. And this current is very fast. It's called Kuroshio current. Particularly in Taiwan, in the eastern part of Taiwan, the speed is particularly strong. It's about 1.5 to 2.5 times stronger than the speed in Philippines or in Japan. And it's very stable. Unlike in other places, it switched positions every 2-3 months. Okay, so in Taiwan, it's very stable. So we are developing this generator that can submerge under surface to generate power. Even though this is still in its infancy, we still require a lot of technological development to realize this. And the challenge is how to fix this turbine, anchor this turbine to the bottom of the sea. And particularly the eastern part of Taiwan is rather deep. So this is a engineering challenge that we have to overcome. And the power you generated, you can directly use a cable to transmit to the shore, to utilize that, or you can convert that to something else, for example, hydrogen energy, and then ship the hydrogen to application areas. And you can imagine utilizing this generator in an array style. Okay, we imagine that you can use 50 units. Each one is 1 megawatt, so each array is 50 megawatts. So using this technology, you can scale up the current energy. But as I said, this is still in its infancy. We still need to require a lot of technological and engineering development. The next one is solar panel. And solar panel is not a new story, but current efficiency is about 20% and maybe 22% at best. And we are proposing to develop a technology, commercial technology, to increase the efficiency to at least 30% or even 33%. To do that, if you can do that, you will reduce the land requirement to generate this solar power. And land is very precious, particularly in Taiwan and in many other countries as well. So the way to do that is to use a multi-junction solar cell. The bottom part is the typical silicon solar panel. The top part is the new material called perovskite, and I think many of you will have heard this. It's probably one of the most popular structure that people are interested in these days. If you combine these two type of material, then you can harvest energy spectrum much wider, and you can increase the efficiency of solar energy conversion. The last technology that we propose is to harvest the biomass as a carbon sink. Okay, we know that photosynthesis is one of the oldest and probably the most efficient way to capture carbon from the atmosphere. Okay? And in many countries have their native plants that can conduct photosynthesis very fast. In Taiwan, we identify this grassy plant called the pennisetum. This is the grass that we grow to feed to the cows. So already very native to Taiwan's ecosystem. And many other countries have similar plants. And it can grow very fast. We can harvest 4 to 5 times a year. And once you can harvest that, you can go through various processes to produce biocarbon or even biochemicals that can eventually, as a small percentage of replacement to petroleum. And the biocarbon can be very stable as a carbon sink. So this, we propose, will have to be developed in order to offset the last few percentage of the carbon emission that we will inevitably will have to produce. So all these 5 technologies are what we propose now, and we are currently working towards these 5 directions. And thank you for your attention, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lau, for joining us this afternoon. Our next speaker is Linda Morris, leader and senior partner of Innovation Labs. So, ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Mr. Morris onto the stage.
What I said, that works. What I said was, hi, everybody. I especially want to say hi to the people in the back because you can barely see me. Yeah, thank you for waving. Since you can't see me, what you should know, you've seen pictures of Brad Pitt, right? He looks just like me. So that's all you need to know. That was a test to see if you guys could get a joke. I'm not sure if you got it or not. That's okay. I think I'm here, and by the way, thank you for inviting me. It's really a pleasure and an honor to join you. I'm here because I wrote this book called Net Zero City, which is sort of fitting to the occasion. And there you see the image which is on the cover. And of course, you're familiar with these stripes. They're called climate stripes. But did you notice what's wrong with these climate stripes? They're going from warmer to cooler. Because Farah, Naz, and myself are optimists. We believe that the net zero transition will happen, and it'll happen very fast. So rather than putting climate stripes saying the world is getting warmer on the cover of our book, we put saying we would be successful in making this transition. Now, I want to start by congratulating you. Please raise your hand if you're from a city or a city government. Yeah, many of you. So congratulations to all of you because you won. Cities have won the population derby. Everybody around the world wants to live in a city or move to a city just about. And so here's a graph that shows the historical trend. As you can see, the rural population is declining and the urban population is increasing. So those of you who work in cities, who are in city government or involved in this city in some way, you won, and that's wonderful, but how did you do it? Well, you did it because people moved to the cities to get jobs, and through those jobs they experience more social interactions, and so there are learning advantages, and this becomes a positive feedback spiral. So people want to move to the cities because of all of these advantages, and it's leading to tremendous population growth, as you know. So between now and about 2070, so over the next 50 years, roughly 3 billion more people will be moving to your cities than presently live there. So you've got a lot to prepare for, a lot of population growth. And as you know, there are some problems associated with this, and that's why there's a conference like this. One of the problems is it takes too much oil to run our cities. So here's a photograph. This is Chicago in the US, a Midwestern city. And the city cannot function without oil. It could never have come into existence, and it cannot function today. By 2050, perhaps it will, but we're not there yet. So oil, of course, is a big problem. In other parts of the world, we have a problem with not enough water. You can see these boats. They're not sailing very well on the sand. This is formerly called the Aral Sea. Now it's the Aral Lake because it shrunk so much. In other places, there's too much water. So climate change isn't just drying places. It's also making other places wetter. This is somewhere across the strait. Not a good situation for that homeowner, certainly. And of course, underlying all of this is too much CO2. So here's a graph that shows what we've done over the last 100 years. So this is an exponential curve, and we know that unless we stop that exponential growth, we're going to have serious problems. So that one house that's leaning over will be accompanied by many, many others. So we have the climate emergency. None of this is news. In fact, possibly nothing I'm going to share with you this afternoon is news. But it's interesting to put it all together and to try to tell a story about it. So you won, but now you have to transform. That's sort of the underlying message here. Cities won from a social, from an economic, from a cultural standpoint. But now you're going to have to go through a transformation. And we know that cities are leading this transformation globally. The difference between a city government and a national government in most places is that city governments actually have to deliver cities that work, whereas many national governments are focused strictly on ideological problems. And so they're very removed from problem solving. But you as urban managers and people who are working to make cities function, you're going to have to go through this transformation process. In fact, you're going to have to lead this transformation process. So the core of the book that Farah and I wrote was about how we could think about this transformation in a systematic way. So you can think about all the possible actions that you might want to take. You'll visit the booths in the trade show and the other booths downstairs, and there are dozens or hundreds or thousands of possible actions that you can take. But how can you organize your thinking and how can you organize your strategy so that you know that you're doing the right thing? Because you could spend a huge amount of money and waste a huge amount of time doing things with very little benefit, while other actions that you could have taken, which would have had a great benefit, you might not have known about. So what we did was we thought about the system of the city, and we broke it down into 5 major elements. So the first element is your role, governance. The second is the role of the engineers and architects and civic designers, urban design itself. The third is the engineering of the infrastructure of the city, so how the city functions, how it moves, transportation, water, waste, etc. The fourth is why we live in cities, the economics of the city. Of course, what we're proposing to do, whatever we propose to do, has to make economic sense. And lastly, the value that we get from cities, the cultural and social aspects. So these are 5 very, very different categories of thinking. And by breaking them apart, by organizing ourselves this way, we begin to be able to think systematically about this transformation process that we need to undertake. So, the city as one system, but it's not just 5 boxes laid sideways next to each other. We actually want to visualize it in a more compelling way. So here we have a tangible set of actions on one side of the model and relatively intangible set of actions on the other side of the model. So we call this the urban system framework. And again, its purpose is to help us think clearly about a very, very complex situation, which is going to require a lot of money to fix and therefore a lot of good strategy. So I want to share with you some examples from the book, and in fact the book has 113 examples. Most of the book is filled with these examples. 112 of the examples are thumbs up, things that we recommend. One of the examples was thumbs down, something we said don't do that. So I'm just going to share with you a few of the examples in each of the categories just to give you an idea of the range of possibilities. So first of all, in urban governance, perhaps you're familiar with this practice. This is in Bogota, Colombia, the ciclovia. So one day a month and on holidays, on a Sunday, a non-work day, the main city streets are devoted to cycling and pedestrians. And this is a very powerful social message that the governance of Bogota has given to its citizens, because during the weekdays, the people with cars and the people with big fancy cars, they can dominate the city. But on the weekend, when the ciclovia happens, the city is open to everyone. So it's an opportunity for people to meet each other. It's an opportunity for people to do something healthy for themselves. It obviously helps to clean the air. And it sets a tone about the city belongs not just to the wealthy, but the city belongs to all of us. And 2 of the speakers before me have talked about the just transition. And this is another aspect of justice, that everyone has access to the city. And in fact, the mayor of Bogota, who put this practice into place, was very concerned about social justice in Bogota and made many other innovations as well that were along this line that improved the city, not just for the wealthy, but for everyone. So what about urban design and master planning? What can we example there? So here are 3 different examples. The one on the left is a hotel. It's a net zero hotel. It's in Vienna, Austria. You can tell it's quite green and lovely. The one in the middle is in Dubai. It's World Trade Center building, and it's very, very energy efficient. And the architects who designed and built it, Hopkins Architects out of the UK, they wanted to build a building which would function very well in the very hot desert climate of Dubai, but which would be very energy efficient. And they succeeded in doing that. So there's about a dozen design innovations embedded in that building, very much worth looking into. And the one on the far right, that's in Arizona. That's obviously not a building. That's a saguaro cactus, so the giant cactuses that you don't want to run into because of the spines on them. And the saguaro cactus is an example of nature's urban design, nature's engineering. So you notice the rib structure of the cactus. Well, the ribs perform a very important ecological function to help keep the saguaro cool, because the ridges are shading. So the ridges create shade so that the entire structure of the saguaro is not in the hot desert sun. And those of you who have been to Arizona in the summertime know that the hot sun can be well over 40 degrees Fahrenheit, well over 125 degrees, 40 degrees Celsius, well over 125 degrees Fahrenheit. So this is a survival strategy. Now, the source of that particular bit of information is a field of engineering called biomimicry. It's using nature's engineering solutions to solve human problems. So biomimicry is a very good resource for all of those of us who are interested in finding how nature has solved engineering problems that now humanity is interested in. So our third category, urban infrastructure. The example I've taken here is a don't do it example. This is my local dump. We produce a tremendous amount of waste, some of which rots, some of which is plastic and will never rot. And of course, we're learning that we can't do that anymore. We have to completely change our energy practices as well as our waste practices. On the do this side of the equation, we have this beautiful building also in the UAE. It's the headquarters of a company called Beya. It was designed by Zaha Hadid, the famous Iranian architect who died recently, unfortunately. And the reason that I'm showing it to you is not only because it's beautiful and it's in the desert, but it's a very, very energy efficient building. So my co-author, Farah Naz, is an energy engineer. She's based in Dubai, and she worked on the design of this building to help the architects achieve a net zero building in the desert of Dubai, as you can imagine. And you can see in the picture, very, very hot. So not only is it a gorgeous building, but it's a tremendously efficient building. And the last example of infrastructure is the energy auditing that is going on. And the particular example here is Canada. So the Canadian group, CESAR, has done an analysis showing where energy in Canada is coming from and where it's going. Very similar to what Dr. Liao just showed us a few minutes ago. This is critical because in order to get to net zero, we have to know what we're doing from an engineering standpoint. So doing an audit like this is essential. And I'll come back to this topic in a few more minutes because I want to say something else about it as well. So what about urban economics? Well, here's a very interesting example. So you probably know that the state of Florida is one of America's lowest lying states. Perhaps you even know that the city of Miami floods almost once a month when the tide is very high, and that Florida is subject to very, very damaging hurricanes on a regular basis. And so here's a bank which is based in Florida, which is creating finance to enable the net zero transition, to facilitate the transition. So this is the homepage from their website, and I put it here because I really appreciate the comment that they put on there. The status quo of inaction is no longer an option. So here's a group of bankers who said, well, you know, we know that net zero is an engineering problem, it's an architecture problem, it's a governance problem, but we as bankers can also contribute solutions. Here's a sense of the scope of the problem as derived from a Princeton University study which said that over the period from 2020 to 2030, roughly $2.5 trillion will be needed in the US alone to fund the transformation. So we're talking about a huge amount of money. And again, these investments have to be very carefully thought about and managed because we have to achieve the return that we need. And the last category, urban culture and society. So I've taken an example that you're probably familiar with from Paris. So this is called Paris Plage, or Paris the Beaches. So along the roadway that runs along the Seine River during the summertime, they stop the cars and they put sand. So Paris now has a beach. And as you know, it's very far inland, so it's not near the ocean at all. And when this first started, the car drivers were furious because this is one of the main ways to get in and out of Paris from the southwest. But the mayor of Paris said, yes, we're going to do this because it's good for the culture of the city. It's good for our society. It's good for the spirit of our city. So here we have an example of a net zero action which also provides a cultural benefit. So again, 5 categories of thinking, 5 different types of solutions, all the way from cultural change to engineering change. Right? So very wide range of possibilities are available to you as city leaders as you think about what you're going to do in your city. So how are you going to decide? How are you going to decide where to make your investments? Well, you can decide by letting the people who have the most money make the decisions, but that does not necessarily lead to the best action or to a just transition. So what we need is the data. We've got to have the data, and I showed you the CESAR data of Canada's energy inputs and outputs. Professor Liao just showed you a little bit about the situation here in Taiwan. But the full scope of the data that you require is, frankly, enormous. Because this is the data that you need to solve the problem. You need data from all of these sectors, from the government, from the private sector, from the consumer sector, from science. You need trend data. And this is really just the start. This is just the tip of the iceberg. You need a lot more than this. But collecting this much data, organizing it, is a very big problem because it's coming from many, many different databases. It's coming from all kinds of different sources. It's of varying quality. It's inconsistent in its approach. So you need a systematic approach to the data in order to know what the strategy should be, in order to know how you should invest, in order to manage your transformation. So we thought about this and we came up with a simple framework. We call it the data value stack. So here we have on the far left the data sources, and then we need tools for data management. And then, of course, a lot of this data is very important, so we need data security. So we have to do all this before we actually get any value out of the data. Because then we can do the analytics, and then we can come up with our transformation strategy, and then we can implement a net zero strategy. So you can take initiatives in your city toward net zero, as many of the ones that I've shown you, or hundreds of others. As I said, there's 112 positive examples in the book, and there's probably 500 out here on the trade show floor, on this floor, and the floor downstairs. So many, many opportunities, but how do you choose? You need a strategy, and the strategy has to be informed by data. And it's a tricky problem. It's a big data problem, and we know that big data problems are difficult to solve. So here's the same visualization, but with a little more detail around it. So there's that same list of data sources, some of the practices in data management, what do you have to do for security, and then we get to the value creation part, the analytics, and then the inputs. What are we after here? Well, we want to get to net zero. So net zero is an important topic, a very popular topic. I read recently that at COP28 in Dubai, 85,000 people went to COP28. So we made a huge investment in creating more carbon for all those people to fly to Dubai and then drive around and attend the conference in order to solve a very, very important problem for all of these users and stakeholders. So for you as city leaders, for government agencies, for scientists, for citizens, for business leaders. So if you're interested in this particular problem, it's something that our firm has been doing a little bit of work on. Please, I'll be around. Please come and talk to me because we have a big data approach that we think is pretty interesting. What we're actually talking about then, with all of this data and all the analytics, is creating what we call an urban twin. You're probably familiar with the concept of a digital twin. That's where you take a building and you represent all of its systems in a computer so that you can model. So for example, Farah Naz creates a digital twin of the Beya headquarters building that I showed you in order to model the energy performance of that building. But we're talking about an urban twin to model the energy performance of the city. Again, it's a tremendous big data problem, but it's the problem that you need to solve in order to make sure you're investing wisely. And then there's something else that you need, which is a roadmap. How are you going to get there? Now, when Farah and I started writing the book, we came to the conclusion that 2050, which is the date that's generally accepted for net zero, is far too far in the future. If we really wait to get to net zero to 2050, then we're all going to be essentially cooked, literally. So we designed a roadmap to get to net zero by 2032. And that's what I want to share with you here. You got to have one. Because the roadmap is essentially the map of your strategy. And your city's strategy will be different from the strategy of other cities in your nation, other cities in your continent. And we designed the roadmap around the same framework. So these are the same 4-5 boxes that you saw, but now they're shown as arrows going across because, of course, a roadmap is directional. So we're creating a timeline. And we said the roadmap, go back too fast. There we go. The roadmap is going to take place in 4 stages. So Farah, my co-author, is an engineer. And so she wanted something that was precise the way an engineer would like to think about this. And she said, well, we need phase 1 to assess. We need to learn. We need to plan. We need to gather and model all this data. Then we need to start taking action. But we need to do action in a sensible way by testing and prototyping and experimenting. And then the experiments that really work will accelerate those in order to achieve our goal. So 4 phases. Now I'll show you what the map looks like. Of course, you can't read it from where you are. I understand that, but you can see there's a lot of detail here. Now, this is not the roadmap for your city. This is a generic roadmap. We suggest that you need a roadmap like this, but one specific to the situation where you are. The roadmap is actually quite large. I'm going to hold it up and show it to you here. So I have this copy here, and you're more than welcome to come and take a look at it. We also make the roadmap free as a download from the book's website. I'll get to that web address in a second. So as you can see, what we're trying to show here is actions that have to be taken across all the 5 dimensions that I shared with you before. Some of them are very strategic and analytical. Some of them are very tactical and action-oriented. But again, the point is that you need a roadmap so that, again, you know you're making the right decisions. If the U.S., for example, is going to spend $2.5 trillion over the next 10 years achieving some of its net zero objectives, wouldn't it be nice if we had a roadmap that said how we were going to spend that $2.5 trillion and what we expected to get out of it? Because, you know, it's government money, and it's so easy to waste government money. We hear that all the time, and it's unfortunately true. So, roadmap is a simple thing to think about, not so simple to do, but very much worth the effort. Something that anybody who's strategically minded would think is a good idea. And the last thing I want to talk about on this journey, on this transformation journey, is leadership, which means you. You are the leaders of your cities, and you're going to have to lead this process. So, again, the 5 elements that I've talked about: governance, urban design, infrastructure, the economy, culture, and society. But this is a unique leadership opportunity, and we cannot underestimate the significance of this moment in time historically, because we are attempting now to do something as a society globally, as a civilization. You know, all of you come from different cities around the world. There, I think, what do you say, 100 or 200 different cities are represented here, many, many different countries. So what we're doing is something which has never been done before. This is a designed transformation, and it's the fastest designed transformation in human history. That's what the net zero transformation is all about. So each of us has an opportunity, but also a responsibility, because, you know, carbon dioxide does not respect national borders. My carbon dioxide is your problem, your carbon dioxide is my problem, and we're going to have to solve that problem together. And humanity has never, ever had to address a problem of this type, of this scope. And that's why your leadership is absolutely essential, because we're going to have to do things we've never done before. And that's what leaders are all about. That's what you're all about as a leader. So, here's a summary of what I've just shared with you. You're going to have to transform, or we all die. In order to do that, you have to understand your system as a system. So system thinking and the 5 boxes that I talked about is just a way to model that. You're going to have to gather the data, come up with the analytics, come up with the strategies, design the roadmap, and provide the leadership. And you should have all that done by about 5 o'clock tonight in time for dinner. So, thank you for laughing. Someone laughed. Good, yes. So, the website, the book has a website. This is it. On the website, as I said, you can download the roadmap. Some other materials on the website as well are available. There's a QR code for the website and a QR code for my LinkedIn. And I'll be around. And you know, when I left, I live in New York. When I left New York, I was very careful to grab a whole huge stack of business cards. And I don't want to take them back, because I want to talk to you. So please come and talk to me and let me learn from you. Thank you very much again for inviting me to join you here. And I hope you enjoyed my comments, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Morris, for your most insightful presentation on the journey and the unlimited possibilities of net zero cities in the future. And now please return to your seat. Ladies and gentlemen, with that, we conclude the main forum of the 2024 Net Zero City Leaders Summit. May I remind you that the 3 parallel forums will be taking place in the meeting room on the 7th floor. So may I also remind you that the 3 parallel forums are Energy Transition Forum in room E. Again, these rooms are all located on the 7th floor. And the Just Transition Forum will be taking place in room F. And the Net Zero Lifestyle Transition